Okay, it's day 105. This is part two, and I'm calling this one Kroupnik, Clotsworthy and Me. Maybe the new title of my series. I think I'm going to change it to Kroupnik, Clotsworthy and Me. If you don't know Johnny T, about, oh gosh, a year ago, I was kind of walled up in this hotel in Brooklyn, and I was doing my SEIU series, and I was calling out all the SEIU janitors and kind of the whole rat line on Flatbush Avenue. And the first 5 floors got filled up with all these Navy guys, just out of nowhere. And it was Fleet Week, so fair enough. But anyway, there was a couple of these SEIU Tonys, wrapping chains around their hands out in the parking lot. And I called Johnny because the door to my room at the top floor was locked. And then I went to the elevator, and there was these two guys in there that looked like the size of, they looked like, okay, this is your last elevator ride. The elevator was about the size of a phone booth, and they weren't from they had the elevator key, and they weren't from the hotel. So I thought, okay, I don't like this. So I called Johnny. He got me out of that hotel, and I never forgot. I don't ever give him enough credit for being that guy who came over and kind of rescued me from the hotel. Not maybe rescued, but maybe got me to look at the lighter side of things there. It was kind of a tight situation. So anyway, I'll replay that episode again if I find it. But he's the funniest man in journalism. Johnny T is the funniest man in journalism. And I always remember Walter Matthau used to say the K's are funny. So Kroupnik, Clotsworthy, and Me is just... It's just got all the things that you need in a dessert topping. So anyway, seriously, what I love about this form of journalism and, establishing what is a Kroupnik, what is a Clotsworthy, and then creating that sort of meme. First of all, it's bounded in the truth and meticulous research. But then there's also a handle so people can say, okay, I know what a Kroupnik is. A Kroupnik is somebody from Eastern Europe that speaks Russian, that's involved in earth resources and mining. Okay, and we started with all these Kroupniks. We got Roman Kroupnik over here with Mark Lambert, and we found Vladimir Kroupnik with this Kazakhstan gold mining operation. Which really is it really a gold mining operation, or is it actually something about 50 times more valuable, which is the uranium mining? And again, somebody explained to me, hey, you don't necessarily, if you're in these countries, have to report exactly what you're taking out. As long as you give enough to the person who's the interior minister, you're good to go. So that was Vladimir Kroupnik. And we find that there's Kroupniks all through this uranium cycle, both overseas and in America. And it's this linkage. It creates this linkage to the whole story. The Kroupniks are everywhere. Everywhere, Kroupnik. Kroupnik is the head, Pavel Kroupnik is the head of the U.S. Enrichment Corps. He has all the monopoly on U.S. enrichment. Okay, so you can turn some enrichment facilities down in Ohio, the place I was going to in Piketown during the parallel construction. You can turn other ones up, like the one in New Mexico, and shunt it toward your national lab and your people in New Mexico. You can take it overseas. You can start moving this uranium overseas if you run U.S. enrichment. And if you, together with Mark Lambert, have the trucking monopoly, you basically control the whole supply line all the way from the mine to the reactor, if you think about it. So that is with just 2 people there crushing their Kroupniks, with Roman Kroupnik crushing Mark Lambert's Kroupniks. You tell the whole story. The whole story in Uranium One is told in this picture. This kiss between you. First, you got to crush the Kroupniks to get the uranium to Mark. Mark takes it to a spinning cycle. He gets it to another Kroupnik, which spins it, and then Mark takes it over to a facility to sell it. So you really, with only two people, one being from Eastern Europe, which is the Kroupnik, you control the whole Uranium One story, and that's what's so important about the Kroupnik idea. Because then if you go to Africa, you can crush your Kroupniks in Africa, uranium in Africa. You can crush your Kroupniks almost anywhere you want to go. and it almost becomes a meme which you'll never be able to get it out of your head, right? So that's what I love about that. And this Congo story really comes together when you add the Kroupnik crushers, okay? And you can say, hey, that Shinko Lobwe, we've got the Shinko Lobwe mine out in Wyoming that maybe Dick Cheney owns, and Genie Energy and all those guys of Genie Energy. Is there some connection here? Because it just seems like Kroupniks were in Wyoming, and then Kroupniks are over in Congo. Wyoming, Congo, Wyoming, Congo. Huh. What's the common theme? Kroupniks. So I think this part of journalism is completely missing. It's just one pretty face after another on CNN saying how that, Donald Trump is obstructing justice. It's just like constant ad infinitum on the PP dossier and the veracity of the PP dossier. Think about the year and a half you've spent in your life with all of the manufactured lies that come from that whole John Brennan cycle of misinformation that then ended up a year of PP dossier. Look at the alternatives. Look at the understanding you have about the uranium-1 and the level. And when Mark Lambert gets indicted, everyone says, yeah, okay, we knew that. We were talking about that 30 days ago. Surprised it didn't happen sooner. Where the rest of America is like, hey, wait a minute, the first indictment's coming down on uranium-1, okay? So now let's move on to Clotsworthy's. Clotsworthy be my destiny.
Okay, D103 parts.
Sorry. Clotsworthy be my destiny. Clotworthy. I like Clotsworthy because Red Klotz used to play for the Washington Generals and lose every game against the Harlem Globetrotters. So I like Red Klotz. Another fun name to say. So this Johnny T, by the way, should have a show called Tuesdays with Johnny T. You have Sundays with Charles. You should have Tuesdays with Johnny T. Just sit down and take questions about my series and maybe a couple of other series. I just think it would be the funniest show. Because just let Johnny riff. But anyway, this is the Johnny T show today. This is all dedicated to Johnny T. So such a chin here, okay? Such a chin. If you have to remember back, who did Hume forward the password to, and what actually did they get? I guarantee all the viewers on my channel will know that that's a such chin, and they'll know it's the Yahoo hack, and they'll know it's Palantir, potentially, or maybe some other software like Prism. But something bad, and they'll understand the implications of just one email for such a chin there, okay? But for the Clotsworthys, I think people now think of, hey, that guy with the rocket, what the heck's going on with that guy in the rocket? And he can't be there. He cannot be there in a secret site in North Korea next to their latest and greatest technology, reaching his hand inside the rocket. He's, the panel's open. He's reaching inside the rocket. Tell me that guy isn't with the CIA. Tell me he's not in some way involved in the CIA and doesn't have top secret clearance. We are getting a totally different message from the CIA on how they're about ready to, start nuclear war, and then Trump backs down, and then the next week we're singing songs with them and making paper mache dolls and dancing and waving flags. Because they think Trump's going to destroy their investment. So this is where the transparency here, there's no excuse for this Lidos thing. Somebody comes out and says, you smeared Lidos. I said, all I did was say that they were involved in this, a spinoff of SAIC in surveillance. I don't know anymore because you guys haven't told us anymore. 40,000. Okay, so that's a Clotsworthy. And these Clotsworthys, I'm poetic license here. I'm going to put the S in there. It flows easier. The Clotsworthys become this symbol of the pay-to-play of this kind of Nazi kid meets cute Masonic girl, and has a baby, and it's called Clotsworthy. We came here as Nazi scientists. We created this little enclave within the FBI. Our little perfect world, we're going to manage all these surveillance investments. We're going to create a surveillance infrastructure, but then we're going to have a lot of Clotsworthys. Our Clotsworthys will be all our little pay-to-play spin-off children that we'll have. We'll have Lidos, for soil, and then we'll have this over here for, Morel. We'll have with CJIS for the Criminal Justice Information System in Clarksburg. For a total domain awareness with geolocation of your dog, everything. So we've got that D-Wave computer down there, and everyone has all these kind of spin-offs, these little Clotsworthys. So Clotsworthy becomes this idea of the secret investment by this kind of Nazi Masonic state that is this little enclave that we have inside our modern FBI. So I think these are valuable memes because they actually tell the truth. The Clotsworthy and Kroupniks tell the truth about pay to play in the minerals and pay to play in surveillance. And then I'm going to say me last as a meme here is, with the journalism and the kind of the scientific method being applied to journalism, making mistakes but correcting them quickly, keeping going deeper, digging, keep reevaluating conclusions, and you end up with where you sometimes make a mistake, like here we'll take the littoral ships, thinking that there was going to be a nuclear power plant, it turned out to be gas turbine. Well, then I learned a whole bunch of other things about its catamaran design and the huge, helicopter bay landing area and the big storage area. And I thought, being able to go right up next to a shore and a ship and so forth. And I thought, did the Navy build this just so they could run uranium from UAE to Iran? I mean, is that why we saw the Iranian boats, being chased and everything, to give us the impression that they hated Americans, and actually what we're doing is running them uranium with these littoral ships? I mean, that's what they seem like. It seems like a special operations ship for drug running. So where are these things? And why don't we know more about them? And I still say they're going to end up having a Navy reactor power plant. But just going through here, I know all these things that were said, about organ harvesting and so forth, all come from research and UN reports. Nothing I've said about any of this situation has not been reported on a worldwide basis, and also we end up seeing these covert programs in the United States potentially with these U.S. Marshals, with the 333. I sat next to a U.S. Marshal and Task Force, and I interviewed him for probably 2 hours, and with the 333, a huge tattoo on his inner arm. And these are the people that are shuttling people from Haiti to Home and Square, right? And are they thinking, well, that guy's a bad guy and he doesn't really need, I'm half evil, I'm going to take half from the bad and give to the good? This is the kind of, again, I don't want to say Nazi thinking, but it is kind of Nazi thinking. It's kind of like, you don't need those organs as much as I do. I deserve those organs more than you. So, anyway, I think, though, the memes in journalism are good as long as they're based in truth. And go down here and just look at a few more memes here. For instance, the whole meme of being a informant, informant turned, disinfo agent. Kim got comments. Obviously, they raided his house, they took all of his stuff, and now, hey, Kim, if you don't say that you got this stuff from Seth Rich, to make it seem like, there is these emails out there in the world that, Peter Smith could sell. We need the bait for the Trumps. We need the bait for the Trumps. If you don't come up and be a part of the bait scheme, all these weird contortions, rather than just saying, hey, I'm really overweight, I got a lot of cocaine from the FBI to be an informant, and, I should just probably be quiet and go to the gym, So anyway, I'm trying to be like Johnny T. I'm not going to succeed. He's the funny man. I'm not. But I'll just leave it there in saying memes in journalism are okay if they are true and they forward understanding, rather than pushing things that are completely false for a year and a half, like the PP dossier. And with those things, you get the PP FISA and all the things that are happening today. The memo will be a total summary of just how far off the rails we've become.